When you think of Muslim people, remember Mohammed Salahuddin Cloudhurry. He was a waiter at Windows on the World, which was at the top of the World Trade Center. He died that day. His wife had their baby 2 days later. When you think of Muslim people, remember Rama Salih. She was a woman, 28 years old. Her neighbors described her as fun and outgoing and generous. And she died on American Airlines Flight 11, 7 months pregnant with her first child. Remember the founder of the Islamic Circle of North America, who worked in the World Trade Center and also died on September 11th.
I love Islam. Islam is absolutely my life. There's nothing in the world as important to me as Islam. And there is nothing in the world that I am not willing to give up for the sake of Allah, for Islam, and for the Muslims.
Do you agree that covering the face creates a barrier to human relationships, whether for identification or getting to know another person?
No. I do not believe that. I think it's a piece of prejudiced crap.
I think, you know, you can see a person's eyes and you can hear their voice, and in the end, I think a person or a woman should be able to choose how much of her body she shows to other people. And if she wants to cover her face and she feels comfortable with that, and the laws of our society say that she can, then get over it. You know, I might not feel comfortable looking at people with a face covered in tattoos and a mohawk, but that's their prerogative. And if they want to dress like that, then that's my issue if I can't deal with it.
No, did you know in the Quran it says that women and men are equal? If you've read, see, I've read the Quran and I know what the Quran says about women. Have you read the Quran to be able to make those points?
But in fact, here in the Northwest, we're living very close to the real Quranic idea of paradise, defined 36 times as gardens watered by running streams. Since I live in a houseboat on the running stream of Lake Union, this makes perfect sense to me. But the thing is, how come it's news to most people?
That's a fact. It's an unquestionable fact. Because Islam is everything to me, because I know the power of Islam. I know the power of Allah. I understand Allah's love. I understand His wisdom. I understand His mercy. I understand His justice. And I know there is nothing that is better. And I wish to share this with everyone. And the first thing I had to learn was how to present Islam and how to live Islam.
I think if you ask them, I know women that do it, not one of them does it because their husbands. In fact, I've got female friends who cover their faces whose husbands don't want them to, and their parents don't want them to. But this is their choice. It's their body, and that's what they want to do.
All right,
The Quran declares that it comes to renew the message of the Torah and the Gospels, so 1/3 of it reprises the stories of biblical figures like Abraham, Moses, Joseph, Mary, Jesus. God Himself was utterly familiar from His earlier manifestation as Yahweh, jealously insisting on no other gods. The presence of camels, mountains, desert wells and springs took me back to the year I spent wandering the Sinai desert. And then there was the language, the rhythmic cadence of it, reminding me of evenings spent listening to Bedouin elders recite hours-long narrative poems entirely from memory. And I began to grasp why it said that the Quran is really the Quran, only in Arabic. Take the Fatiha, the 7-verse opening chapter that is the Lord's Prayer and the Shema Yisrael of Islam combined. It's just 29 words in Arabic, but anywhere from 65 to 72 in translation. And yet the more you add, the more seems to go missing. The Arabic has an incantatory, almost hypnotic quality that begs to be heard rather than read, felt more than analyzed. It wants to be chanted out loud, to sound its music in the ear and on the tongue. So the Quran in English is a kind of shadow of itself, or as Arthur Arbery called his version, and interpretation.
But then you who have an opportunity to interact with non-Muslims, you can say, but consider the time. 1400 and some, what year are we in? 1470, 80 something? Hijrah. This many years ago, think of the time. Female children were buried alive. Do we have any examples of this in our society today? Not in America, but in the world today? Yes. In China, women are killing female children because they're only allowed to have one child. And so they kill the female so that they can end up having a son who will hold the name. This is amazing to me that we haven't learned in this 1500 years that this is wrong. Women were traded just like horses or packages of dates. And women were married off as part of business deals. This was the time. And this was the state of the world even after the other two great religions had come, brought the book, brought a messenger, and guided many people towards a belief in one God. Still, women were in a situation where they were bartered for and traded. This is unconscionable. So Islam came with a different message, and a new message, and an important one, that was going to be just and fair towards women.
You know, for those of you who know, I embraced Islam about 24 years ago to the consternation of most of my family. And actually the reaction of my family was so severe that one member of my family actually tried to kill me. Another member actually arranged to have me committed to a mental institute because they couldn't believe that I would, you know, go into Islam. And yet, by applying Islam to my life, by living Islam, most of my family is now Muslim. Alhamdulillah.
But all is not lost in translation. As the Quran promises, patience is rewarded, and there are many surprises. A degree of environmental awareness, for instance, and of humans as mere stewards of God's creation, unmatched in the Bible. And where the Bible is addressed exclusively to men, using the second and third person masculine, the Quran includes women, talking, for instance, of believing men and believing women, honorable men and honorable women. Or take the infamous verse about killing the unbelievers. Yes, it does say that, but in a very specific context. The anticipated conquest of the sanctuary city of Mecca, where fighting was usually forbidden. And the permission comes hedged about with qualifiers. Not you must kill unbelievers in Mecca, but you are allowed to, but only after a grace period is over. And only if there's no other pact in place. And only if they try to stop you getting to the Kaaba. And only if they attack you first. And even then, God is merciful, forgiveness is supreme, and so, essentially.
Certainly men in Islam don't have the right to objectify women. And women are all considered sisters and aunties and mothers, and treated as such in a very venerable position. And of course, if you tell anyone that paradise lies beneath the foot of the mother, or beneath the feet of the mother in Islam, they'll say, this gives them a different picture of Islam. Use the hadith and use the Quran in educating others.
The media are now calling this a wave of Islamophobia that is sweeping across America. I saw a story this week on CNN about a minister in Gainesville, Florida, who has declared September 11th of this year Burn the Quran Day. Thank you for your reaction. That was mine. This guy is a minister at a non-denominational church called the Dove World Outreach Center. He said all kinds of disparaging, insulting, inaccurate things about Islam that I'm not going to repeat from this pulpit.
The thing is that everywhere you go, if you actually are living Islam, if you are demonstrating Islam, you will impact people. And you will change their mindset.
This was perhaps the biggest surprise. How flexible the Quran is, at least in minds that are not fundamentally inflexible. Some of these verses are definite in meaning, it says, and others are ambiguous. The perverse at heart will seek out the ambiguities, trying to create discord by pinning down meanings of their own. Only God knows the true meaning. The phrase, God is subtle, appears again and again. And indeed, the whole of the Quran is far more subtle than most of us have been led to believe.
About Islam. People feel that the God of Islam, this Allah, when you use the word Allah, it has been given such a negative stereotype in our society through the media that all they hear is Allahu Akbar as people go to kill someone. That word Allah, to everyone in this country, means a harsh God, a frightening God, a revengeful God. And what we have to let people know is, no, Allah simply is the word in Arabic. It's not different than God, the God that sent Abraham, the God that sent Moses, sent Jesus, and sent Muhammad, peace be upon them all. In Islam, we believe in a loving God who would never deny the rights of half of the society, the women. So Islam gave women the rights to vote over 1,450 years ago, the right to vote. Does anyone know in this audience when we got the right to vote in this country, this advanced, very free country? When did women start voting here? Anybody know? Maybe you know. Early 1900s, in my mother's lifetime. Can you believe that this advanced society that we say is the freedom of the world lies, we're like the belt of freedom is held by America. No. Women couldn't even vote until my grandmother was of voting age. Also inherit.
But also, like the Bible, the predominant message of the Quran is of peace and care and loving God, justice, care for the neighbor, care for the stranger. In the Bible, we have thou shalt not kill. In the Quran, we have whoever kills another, surely he is killing all of humanity. And whoever saves the life of another, surely he saves the lives of all humanity. These are words of peace, words of faith, words that could save the world if we would take them to heart.
And that number 72 never appears. There are no 72 virgins in the Quran. That idea only came into being 300 years later, and most Islamic scholars see it as the equivalent of people with wings sitting on clouds and strumming harps. Paradise is quite the opposite. It's not virginity, it's fecundity, it's plenty, it's gardens watered by running streams. Thank you.